Joe Volpe, publisher of Corriere Canadese for Go Live TV and Corcan Media Group on the comment of the day. SNC-Lavalin just doesn't get off the pages. So this is about the women revolting against the government and about SNC-Lavalin. So there was a movie by Mel Gibson on what women want. Well, what do these women want? The saga of the women in the Liberal caucus, some of them former members of cabinet, who insist that there's something more nefarious in the SNC-Lavalin affair that needs to be outed, is approaching the ridiculous. It now has a life of its own. Its end game escapes the comprehension of mere mortals like this publisher. Those who follow our pages know that Corriere Canadese cannot be accused of being an apologist for the Prime Minister. In fact, it has not shied away from criticizing his handling of issues and his reliance on obdurate, politically immature, and insensitive advisors. Having said that, one's attention is diverted to the trio of female MPs, Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott, and Selina Cesar-Chavez. Now, what they're doing to Justin Trudeau's government. Try to make sense of their goals and in the methodical deconstruction of the Prime Minister as a true feminist or one who is truly committed to a progressive agenda. I confess to no longer understanding what that means to them. We're left to scratch our heads. The democratic process and our parliamentary government is designed to permit citizens and their groupings to bring pressure to bear on the decision-making process and to bring about the desired result. It's not always successful. Along the way, a reasonable person may even suggest that the views of others may deserve an equal right to be considered in the balance. Did that happen in the SNC-Lavalin affair? It should have. Probably did. 2 of the 3 women above were privy to cabinet discussions, such as they were, on the matter. Now, they feel the need to give the public a blow-by-blow account of what they thought should have happened. I no longer know what made these women such indispensable candidates for Parliament or for Cabinet. Their individual curriculum vitae read impressive enough, but there are a lot of impressive curriculum vitae in and out of Parliament, and not all of them make it to Cabinet. Like it or not, the leader, in this case Justin Trudeau, goes out of his way or her way to pave the road for a nomination, eventual election, and selection to Cabinet of those people sorry for the sarcasm, necessary for the execution of the government's agenda and the country's interests. That applies to the 3 I mentioned above. They didn't get there on their own. In Jody Wilson-Raybould's case, she's also credited with the advances of the Aboriginal agenda that has made great strides under Trudeau's watch. In the last budget, an additional $4.7 billion were allocated for line items dedicated to Indigenous peoples and First Nations, on top of the $21 billion allocated over the previous 5 years. The Truth and Reconciliation agenda had already included a very powerful symbolic gesture. The PM issued an invitation to the Pope for a visit to Canada so that His Holiness could apologize to Canada's Aboriginals for the damage members of the clerical orders inflicted on Aboriginal children in residential schools as they carried out the federal government's program to integrate them. The Corriere Canadese would have preferred criminal charges against all the offenders. Jane Philpott, an MD and widely respected advocate for children and women sufferers of oppression everywhere, but especially in Africa, was given the health portfolio. It was partially her task to focus Canada's attention on the plight of Africans deprived of personal security and access to health services, as well as, among other necessities of life, by their own governments, and to advocate for greater access to our country as a solution. It may be coincidental, But our immigration department is now called the Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada, signaling the focus of our immigration program. It's consistent with symbolism of so many other appointments to the cabinet. The Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada is headed by a former refugee whose time is consumed almost exclusively by refugee issues. Nothing negative in all of this. I can't stress that enough. Whether the rest of us like their agenda or not, the individuals mentioned just now would appear to have the ear and the attention of the Prime Minister and his advisors. Well, perhaps Selina Cesar Chavez did not, at least not to the same extent. However, she was a parliamentary secretary pointed towards advocacy for children and women's issues. And during the last three cabinet shuffles, she was passed over in favor of others. Now, she's announced that she will not run again, taking the occasion to reinforce the now common view that, like her other colleagues, she no longer feels that bond of trust with the PM. By most objective standards, we're dealing with three individuals who got to where they could affect public policy objectives thanks almost exclusively to a Prime Minister who chose to convert their symbolic value into a material outcome. Now, challenge those outcomes all one wants. The fact that the Prime Minister's views and the behind-the-scenes talk may influence our personal perception of who is more right than wrong is little more than petty gossip at this stage. Frankly, if anything, it proves yet again that the Prime Minister has placed his eggs in one basket without the gains that should have accrued to him. Joe Volpe for Go Live TV, Corriere Canadese, Corcan Media Group, inviting you to stay tuned and to follow us on all social media for what will follow after these messages, a message in Italian and subsequently in Portuguese.